paraphernalia out there. That's right. Bruce Smith. That's the last thing we'll say about Smith the rest of the day. It's just Bruce from here on. So if you knew Bruce, that's all you had to say was Bruce. I had the fortunate pleasure of knowing Bruce for nearly 50 of those 77 years that he lived here. And most of them he lived in Williston. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But probably for the last 8 years, as we visited him in Good Samaritan, he had this appointed day planned out. And he told it to me on a number of occasions. I have it written down right here. Finally, about 4 years ago, I'm going to tell you that I was concerned about him forgetting what he wanted. But the truth is, I was afraid I was going to forget what he wanted, so I wrote it all down. And the ones of you that he's called to be pallbearers have responded. The clergy that he asked to participate has been contacted. When Donna called my wife on Tuesday to let us know about the passing of Bruce, we told her that we had this list of all these things that he wanted, and she was unaware of it because I guess he hadn't been down that road with you multiple times like he had been with us. But Donna and Lena were gracious enough to accommodate his wishes. And the last thing that he asked for is he wanted everybody to come. So I thank you all for honoring his last wish because you all came. So first thing I want to ask you is if you're a historian and we're going to write the history of Williston, could you write it without Bruce Smith being in it? I didn't ask you, did you want to put Bruce in it? I said, could you write it? You know? So as you ponder that a minute, I want to take just a minute and do probably what Bruce didn't do justice to, and thank Donna and Lena and their families for their untiring service and dedication to Bruce for all of these years, and particularly your mom and dad before that. And you know, in Matthew 25, Jesus is telling everybody about when he's separating the sheep from the goats, and he talks about the ones that fed and clothed and visited and taken care of the least of one of these. You've done it unto me. And I'll say to you on behalf of this community that the Crabtree family is going to have rewards in heaven because of what they have done in taking care of Bruce for all of these years. So I say thank you. With that, while you're still pondering this history question, I've got another question to ask you. And if you were going to write Bruce's epitaph, how would you write it? And I'm going to start out mine, and then I'm going to tell you a few stories, and then I'm going to finish it. But if I was writing Bruce's epitaph, the first thing I would say, he was the most annoying friend I ever loved. All right? That's how it started. But my relationship with Bruce goes back, when we go back to history, I first met Bruce probably when I was 4 or 5 years old. And you all that are my generation and older realize that the dime store was on the corner, the Western Auto was next to it, and Mr. Milo Smith's sign store was right next to it where there's a vacant lot now. That's where Bruce served his first capacity. But believe it or not, I'll tell you how he annoyed his dad too. But where I really met Bruce was every time my dad bought a new trailer, or bought a new truck, Mr. Milo got commissioned to come paint Phillips livestock hauling on the side of it. So Bruce was Mr. Milo's most able assistant, and that's given a lot of liberty to the able part there. But we were all young children, and we were usually playing stick baseball in Daddy's parking lot with a stick and a lime rock. And Mr. Bruce was supposed to be helping his daddy paint trailers, but you all that knew him knew how he attached he were to kill children. So he usually was out there playing stick baseball with us. Needless to say, Mr. Milo was up on the side of a trailer trying to paint a trailer. He was annoyed with Bruce as well. But if you didn't remember that far back and remember Bruce as the assistant to Mr. Milo in the sign painting business, you may have remembered him as the scorekeeper or the timekeeper at the Williston High School basketball games. And I don't know exactly how long he did it, but he did it all of my lifetime that I remember, until he was unable. And if you didn't remember him there, you probably remembered him as the king of the chain gang. And I don't mean the side of the road chain gang. I'm talking about the chain gang at the Williston High School football games. Because for all the years of my life, he was the head honcho of moving the chains and down the marker signs at the Williston High School ball games. He annoyed a bunch of referees and coaches there too, guys, promise you. Well, maybe you don't remember him that way. So maybe you remember in the 70s when Williston first got tennis courts. You may remember him there. Because if you went to play tennis, you probably couldn't get on it because he and Paul were playing. And if they weren't playing and you tried to play, he would come along and aggravate you anyway. So, and maybe if you didn't remember him there, you remembered him as the sweeper at Crabtree's garage. Or maybe the auto parts delivery man as he drove around in his little truck delivering parts around town to different people from the auto parts store. Or maybe you just remember him as the head handler of wrenches to Mr. Lamar and Mr. Edwin there at the Crabtrees. And if you didn't remember him that way, you probably remembered him at the Driftwood. One or two occasions always happened to me at the Driftwood. When I was young, it was always embarrassing when Bruce came in because you didn't know what he was going to do. But if you had somebody been out with you the first time, it was a scary situation. Later on, you go to the Driftwood and just wanted you to buy a cup of coffee or buy him something. And that was a much better deal to do. And then you may remember him driving around in that little pickup truck that Mr. Lamar had for him. And he was supposed to use it for business, but as you all that live in town will appreciate this more than the ones of you that live out of the city, Bruce had an uncanny way of showing up at the most inopportune times. Particularly if you were considered to be an honorable mother, or an honorable brother, or an honorable sister. And the ones of you out there that have those titles know exactly what I'm talking about. And maybe if you don't remember him from that, you remember him as Bicycle Bruce. Matter of fact, I'll venture to say that Bruce is probably the only man in Williston that's known by people that don't even know him. And I heard some stories from some of you this week that testified to that. But people from other towns know Bruce, didn't even know what Bruce's name was. But that bicycling Bruce, after his days he couldn't drive, he would continue to show up at your house at the most inopportune time on his bicycle. And so then, if you didn't know him that way, you may have known him in his Christian Buddy Club that he started here in latter years. And my boys happen to be members, and my wife and I as well. And if you knew him at all, you appreciate these two stories I'm going to tell you. The first one, I'll tell you, I've told before, and some of you have heard. As a matter of fact, David kind of concurred with that story tonight, so he'll be able to substantiate this story. But we knew Bruce as little guys, and when we'd go to the dime store in Western Auto, he'd invite us into Mr. Milo's sign shop, and we usually do something we weren't supposed to do. But then a few years later, we got a little bigger, and Bruce decided that he was going to make it his place to be in charge of the Summer League softball. Well, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, but in the late 60s and early 70s, there was actually less to do in Williston than there is now. But every Friday night during the summer, Bruce would borrow Mr. Milo's paint truck, and he'd come around, he'd make a round, he'd come around through here, and he'd pick up Julian Shore, and he'd pick up Marshall Howe, he'd pick up Hal and Mike Phillips, and he'd stop down there and pick up Jeff and Steve Phillips, and we'd go to the ballpark. And then David and Scott Davis and all those Watson boys and several others, they'd come from that, they had to walk themselves, he didn't pick them up. But he turned on the lights at the ballpark, And we practiced softball every Friday night for 3 or 4 seasons. We were going to play a big team in Ocala. We still have never played that team, but we practiced, and we practiced. And those of us that Bruce gave something to do all those summers, we appreciate it, and we'll be always indebted. Now, I'm going to tell one more story, and you got to understand, I'm going out on a very shaky limb here, because this story has never been told in public before. As a matter of fact, it's the closest thing my mama ever did to killing me and my brother. My little brother's back there, he's a testament to it, so you can, if I'm lying, I'm dying, he'll tell you. But he was the baby, so he was unscathed in this incident. But I need to set the scene here. There's a few things you gotta understand. This was probably in the mid-1980s. All right, I'd been off to college, my brother had been off to college, and we were home. And you got to remember what I said earlier about Bruce showing up at the most inopportune times. At that time, he was still in his truck. He hadn't graduated to the bicycle yet. But if you were an honorable mother, which my mom was, that means Bruce would show up always on holidays, always, particularly Christmas. And it was expected for you to have a Christmas present for her. And my mother was good. She knew that, and she always did. Well, the other thing you need to understand is my mom used to collect Santa Clauses. Hung them all over the mantle. And the other thing you need to understand, there was always an after Christmas sale over here at the Christmas antique store over there at Irvin. So in the mid-1980s, my mom and my sisters went antiquing to get the Santa Clauses Irvin. My brother Mike and me, we were trained by Harold Phillips, thank you very much. That meant when you did a job, you did it right, if you did it all. When you trimmed the yard, you trimmed all of the plants in the yard. When you cleaned out the garage, you cleaned out the garage. So as they were shopping, we decided we were going to clean out the garage. We were home from college. We were going to make room for Mama's car in the garage, and we did. About 4 o'clock that afternoon, my mama got home. We had a 20-foot flatbed trailer loaded with stuff out there from her things that we thought was trash.
Oh, mistake.
And we were sitting on the magnolia tree sipping iced tea. We were proud of the job we had done. She could actually pull her car in the garage. And Bruce's truck was sitting in the yard. He'd been by to get his Christmas present. Mama wasn't there. So he had collected his own set of valuables out there off the trailer. I'm not sure what made Mama the maddest. The fact that we had thrown all our stuff away, or the fact that Bruce was there plundering through them. But anyway, my mom was one of Bruce's honorable mothers. He was like a member of our family. And he was special. He was very special. And now I'm going to finish that epitaph that I would write if I were writing for Bruce, and I'll let you all tell your good stories. I would still start and say that he was the most annoying friend that I ever loved. But then I would say, the thing about that is, in quotations, and if you knew Bruce, that was his saying, he loved his Jesus. He loved his church. He really loved Williston. He loved his country. He loved to eat. He loved life. He was God's masterpiece. And he was my friend. Thank you.